The Flight Attendant and the Fugitive Part 3. Chapter 8, Flight Risk. The next flight wasn't scheduled. It wasn't commercial. It wasn't even filed. The jet was already fueled by the time they reached the airfield, private, of course, tucked somewhere just outside Zurich with no signage and security guards who looked more like mercenaries than employees. They didn't speak. They didn't ask for passports. They nodded once when Antony approached and disappeared. Alice didn't remember getting in the car. Or packing. Or saying yes. Everything had happened in a rush of instructions and zipped bags. She'd only had time to blink and find herself walking toward another jet, not the one they arrived in, but sleeker, newer, more armored. Dubai, she said, finally breaking the silence as they crossed the tarmac. Antony's jaw ticked. Something's gone wrong. You think? He didn't bite. The meeting was supposed to happen in Geneva. Neutral ground. One of Critch's men pulled out at the last second. That means someone's maneuvering behind the scenes. Trying to shift control. I need to get ahead of it. Alice stopped. Dead in her tracks. The warm wind curled her hair against her face, and the echo of her heels fell quiet on the open-air strip. And me, she asked. Do I need to be in Dubai for that? Antony turned to her slowly. His face wasn't cruel. It wasn't dismissive. But it was clear. Cold with logic. The kind that made her skin prickle with something like resentment. You're in it now, Alice. Whether you want to be or not. She boarded the plane in silence. It was almost exactly the same layout as the first one, wide leather recliners, cream-toned interior, tinted windows, a bar lined with liquor and luxury. But something about this jet felt more clinical. No crystal fruit bowls. No wine chilling on ice. Just efficiency and the hum of the engines preparing to roar. The attendant who greeted them was young, male, with a close-cut beard and the reflexive polish of military background. He didn't look at Alice. Didn't ask if she needed anything. He was Antony's man, and in that silence, she felt her edges blur again. An hour into the flight, Antony was on a secure call, pacing the back of the cabin in low, sharp tones she couldn't decipher. Alice sat alone near the window, unblinking, watching the clouds roll by beneath them like pulled cotton. Her hands were cold. Her skin felt too tight. Something inside her had begun to crack, not in a breaking way, but a splintering one. Too many things had happened too fast. The kiss. The cameras. Julian. Her face on the internet, attached to a name that didn't belong to her, but somehow fit anyway. And now she was on a jet to Dubai, flying towards something she couldn't name. She needed a minute. Just one. But Antony reappeared before she could find it. He dropped into the seat across from her, tossed a small leather folder onto the table between them, and said, "Open it." Alice glanced down. Inside was a passport. A new one. Red cover. Gilded crest. Fake name. Amelia Stone. British. Born in Somerset. Passport issued 2 weeks ago. Stamp free. She stared at it. You're kidding. I'm not. I'm not a spy, Antony. No, he said. You're a target. She closed the passport slowly. Why Dubai? It's the only neutral zone Critch is still willing to meet in, he said. And it's the one place Danton won't touch for legal reasons. But it's dangerous. The wrong movement, the wrong face, the wrong smile, and it falls apart. So what am I supposed to do? She asked, voice sharp. Smile. Nod. Pretend I'm the handbag on your arm while the world burns around us. Antony didn't flinch. You're supposed to keep them from reading me. Alice laughed bitterly. That's what this is about. Optics. No, he said. Survival. He reached under the seat and pulled out a slim black box. Unlatched it. Opened the lid. Inside, a gown. Not just a gown. An architectural marvel of silk and shimmer, deep sapphire blue, with a neckline that would kill in photos and a drape that screamed old-world money. Alice touched it once. The fabric was so smooth it felt liquid. You'll wear that to the hotel gala tonight, Antony said. You'll be photographed. You'll be named as Amelia. There'll be a whisper campaign saying I've changed, settled down. Critch's people will want to meet you. You'll be seen. She looked up sharply. You want me noticed? I want them off balance, he said. They expect me to arrive alone, guarded, cold. But I show up with you, smiling, relaxed, letting someone close, and suddenly they have to re-evaluate everything. Alice stared at him. You're using me again. Antony didn't deny it. Do you think I like this? She asked. Being paraded around like a chess piece. I think you want to win as much as I do. She said nothing. Instead, she stood slowly, gown folded over one arm, and walked to the bathroom in the back of the jet. It was mirror-lined. Sterile. Smelled like lavender and steel. She locked the door, set the dress down on the counter, and leaned into the mirror. For a long time, she stared at her own face. The woman looking back was no longer Alice Edwards, flight attendant. That version of her had been scrubbed away by champagne, scandal, and too many sleepless nights. Now she was something else. She didn't know what yet. But she was going to find out. When she emerged from the bathroom 20 minutes later, she was wearing the gown. Her hair pinned up. Lipstick sharp. Eyes dark. Antony looked up from his tablet. And for the first time since the plane left Zurich. He stared. Just a second too long. Alice walked past him to the window. She didn't look back. And as the sun dipped low across the clouds, casting the entire cabin in amber and gold, she said without turning. You wanted a weapon, Antony. Congratulations. Chapter 9, The Champagne Confession. Dubai at night was a fever dream. The sky above the city was black silk stitched with stars, and the skyline burned, towers lit like candles, fountains dancing with music, palm trees bowing in manicured perfection. The air was warm, perfumed, and too quiet. Like a party that knew it was being watched. The hotel, Al Qasr El Noor, was a fortress wrapped in gold. 25 stories of arabesque elegance and moneyed discretion. Domes glittered. Glass glowed. Every surface gleamed. Antony booked the Royal Terrace Suite, 2 floors, 3 balconies, private pool, a panoramic view of the city, and enough champagne to sink a yacht. The kind of suite meant for billionaires, sheikhs, or couples on the run from their own lies. Alice stood barefoot on the marble floor, dress clinging to her in soft sapphire folds, the night breeze lifting a loose tendril of her hair. Her heels were somewhere behind her. Her earrings were off. Her hands were clenched. Across the suite, Antony was finishing a call. He said something in low Italian. Quiet. Measured. She didn't understand the words. But the tone. The tone told her everything. Things were bad. I want out. Her voice cut across the room like a glass breaking. Antony paused mid-sentence. Finished the call. Set the phone down. Turned. He didn't say what did you say. He didn't say now's not the time. He just looked at her. And she hated how much of her reaction to that single glance was feeling, not logic. I want out, she repeated, steadier now. I'm done playing dress up. I'm not a decoy. I'm not your distraction. I don't want to be in the room when your little mafia summit explodes. He walked to the bar. Uncorked a bottle of Dom Perignon 2006 with a whisper of sound. I'm serious, Antony. He poured 2 glasses. Slowly. Lifted one. Held it toward her. She didn't take it. You said I'd be useful, she went on. But now I'm just a target. Julian's trying to ruin you. Those men you're meeting tomorrow, if they find out who I am, or what I'm not. They already know. She froze. He set the glass down, untouched. They know you're not my fiancé. They know your name isn't Amelia. They know you used to serve drinks and smile for businessmen who snapped their fingers like children. They know everything. Then what am I doing here? He moved closer. You're here because I want you to be. That stopped her. Cold. It wasn't the words, not exactly. It was the way he said them. Like it wasn't a strategy. Not leverage. Not manipulation. Just truth. For the first time, Antony looked tired. Not physically. Something deeper. Like he'd been holding up too much for too long. He stepped closer. Alice, he said quietly. You asked me once if I was serious. About all this. She didn't speak. I was. I am. But what I didn't tell you, what I've never said, is that I'm not just trying to stop a war. I'm trying to survive it. And I've been doing it alone. He picked up the champagne glass again. This time, he held it out with something gentler behind his eyes. So don't quit, he said. Not tonight. Alice took the glass. Their fingers brushed. The first sip hit her hard, not because of the alcohol, but because her body was suddenly aware of how close his was. How warm the air had become. How charged. She looked up. His gaze dropped to her lips. Slowly. Deliberately. And that was it. She kissed him first. Hard. Fast. Messy. The glass slipped from her hand and hit the carpeted floor with a muted thud. They didn't make it to the bedroom. The couch swallowed them. Her dress hit the floor like a wave. His jacket was somewhere near the piano. Buttons were ripped. Hair pulled. Her back hit the cushions with a gasp, and his hands were already tracing the outline of a woman he didn't deserve but couldn't stop reaching for. There were no rules. No pretending. No scripts. Just mouths. Hands. Skin. Heat. And that quiet, dangerous feeling that this was the real risk. Not the mafia. Not the guns. Not the fake passports. But this. Letting someone in. Afterward, the suite was all shadows and breath. She lay with her head on his chest, his hand absently stroking her hair. The city glowed outside like a sleeping beast. Alice could still hear the blood in her ears. Still feel the curve of his palm at the small of her back. I wasn't going to do this, she whispered. I wasn't going to let you, he murmured back. Neither of them moved. But on the terrace, beyond the gauzy curtains, 3 silhouettes stood against the railing of a neighboring rooftop. They didn't smoke. They didn't speak. They only watched. And one of them raised a small camera to his face and pressed the shutter. Chapter 10, Assassins by the Infinity Pool. Dubai shimmered under a white-hot sun. The kind of sun that bleached the sky, made the buildings too bright to look at directly, and turned the air into something you could feel pressing against your skin. They held the meeting poolside. Not in a boardroom, not in some fortified bunker, but at the rooftop infinity pool of the Jazeera Crown, a glass and gold palace perched atop the Burj Al Souk. It was absurdly cinematic, water spilling over the edge, the city sprawling below, the horizon blurred by desert haze. The illusion of peace. But Alice knew by now, the more beautiful the setting, the more dangerous the moment. There were 9 people present. 3 from Critch's camp, stoic, pale, businesslike, dressed like accountants with blood on their shoes. 3 from Danton's side, all black suits and silk ties, 2 men and a younger woman who said nothing but took notes like a war clerk. 2 guards with mirrored sunglasses stood at the elevators. And Antony. He didn't wear a tie. He wore ice blue linen and moved like a man without fear. Alice sat beside him in another borrowed dress, this one ivory, sleek, a high neckline and soft sleeves that brushed her shoulders. Beside her, a sweating pitcher of mint water. In her lap, her fingers clenched tightly together beneath the tablecloth. No one introduced her. No one had to. They all knew who she was. They spoke in English. Not because it was neutral, but because it was strategic, every word measured, every sentence precise. Each phrase passed back and forth like a chess piece being moved. They discussed port access, shipping contracts, non-aggression clauses. They smiled as they spoke of revenue corridors and mutual oversight like they weren't referring to decades of weapons smuggling, laundering, and unspoken bodies left in hotel hallways. Alice didn't speak. She listened. Hard. And from the corner of her eye, she watched the youngest man at the table, Mateo Critch, Georg's son. Late 20s. Lean. Too tan. Hair slicked back like he thought he was in a Netflix drama. He didn't speak much. Just smirked. Checked his watch. Leaned toward the water with lazy disinterest. And then, he stood. No warning. No speech. Just stood up, slid back his chair, and turned away from the table. Antony's head lifted immediately. The room froze. Alice's spine straightened. Mateo turned back with a bored expression. Just going to get a drink, he said, gesturing to the bar station beside the pool. If no one minds. Danton's rep nodded. Critch's didn't. Alice's stomach dropped. The bartender, in a white linen vest, no name tag, had only just filled the glass when it happened. A single, muted pop. So soft it could have been a car door closing on the street below. But Mateo spun, glass shattering against the tile, and staggered forward with a choked noise in his throat. He collapsed halfway into the pool, blood trailing from beneath his blazer like spilled ink. Everything fell silent. No screams. Just gasps. Stunned stillness. And then chaos erupted. Antony moved fast. So fast Alice barely had time to react. He was on his feet, one hand on her arm, dragging her from the table before the body hit the water fully. His voice came low and lethal. Now. The guards reached for their weapons. Critch's men stood, one already shouting into an earpiece in German. Alice stumbled in heels, clutching Antony's arm as they sprinted toward the elevator. "No elevator," he barked. "Stairs." 2 shots rang out behind them. Louder this time. People screamed. Someone shouted, "Don't let him leave." Antony shoved open the emergency door and pulled Alice down the stairwell in a blur of motion. They ran, 4 flights, maybe 5, until the metal door at the service exit burst open. A black Rolls-Royce was already waiting at the loading dock. Doors unlocked. Engine running. Alice couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. She dove in after Antony and barely registered the driver, a man with tattoos down his neck and no expression. "Drive," Antony said, slamming the door. The car peeled off. Inside the silence was almost worse. Alice's chest heaved. Her heart slammed like a trapped bird. "Mateo," she gasped. He was targeted. Antony finished, not looking at her. Someone wanted to make sure there wouldn't be a deal. She stared at him. "Who?" Danton sighed. He shook his head. "Danton doesn't kill during meetings. It's his only rule." "Then who?" Antony finally turned. His face was different now. Not just serious. Haunted. He held up his phone. Julian's name was on the screen. Call failed. Alice stared. "You think Julian had him killed?" "I think Julian didn't show up for the meeting. I think Julian leaked the guest list. And I think Julian's been 2 steps ahead of me for weeks." "But why Mateo?" Antony closed his eyes for a moment. "Because he was the unpredictable one. The wild card. The only heir not locked into family loyalty. Julian probably offered him a private deal, one he refused. So he made him a symbol." Alice felt cold. "A symbol of what?" Antony's eyes opened. "Calm. Final. War." Outside, the Rolls-Royce turned sharply onto a service road, disappearing behind a row of silent villas. No one followed. No one spoke. And in the seat beside her, Alice realized something that made her stomach twist. They hadn't just witnessed a failed peace talk. They'd just witnessed its murder. And whoever had pulled the trigger, knew exactly who she was. Chapter 11, Julian's Deal with the Feds. Monaco smelled like money. Salt air, old cigars, perfume so expensive it could have paid someone's rent. The harbor gleamed with yachts bigger than city buses, all lined up like polished teeth. Every story front had security glass. Every car was waxed. Even the beggars had designer sunglasses. Alice hadn't meant to follow him. She hadn't even known he was here. She and Antony were supposed to be laying low, a 48-hour pause at a boutique hotel on the edge of the Port Hercules marina. No schedule. No contact. Just rest. Except Antony had vanished this afternoon, one text, no details, and Alice had gotten restless. So she slipped on sunglasses, tied up her hair, and walked toward the sea. And that's when she saw him. Julian. Seated in a sunken leather booth at the corner of the Hotel Morne Voyage's rooftop bar, sipping something gold in a cut crystal glass. He wore all white. His shirt was undone 2 buttons too far, and his tan looked bought. But that wasn't what made her freeze. It was the look on his face. He wasn't watching. He wasn't scanning. He was celebrating. Relaxed. Triumphant. A man who'd won a game the rest of the room didn't even know they were playing. She was going to leave. Cross the street. Pretend she hadn't seen him. But then he took out his phone. And said one word. Langley. She turned. Walked straight into the bar. The music was low, something jazzy, forgettable. The scent of sandalwood and citrus drifted from a nearby candle. Waiters in black carried silver trays of champagne and oysters. Julian didn't see her. She ducked behind the corner of the bar, 3 booths down, and reached into her bag. Her phone. Voice recorder app. Record. Julian's voice carried in measured, lazy confidence. No, listen to me. You're going to have everything by morning. The location, the files, the aliases, the new passport numbers. All of it. He has no idea. Pause. A chuckle. I said I'd bring you Giordano's empire, didn't I? I don't need immunity. I need a contract. And your word that when this breaks, he goes down, not me. Another sip. Ice clinking. She's still with him. The British girl. She won't last much longer. Once the arrest happens, she'll be desperate to talk. And if not, well, accidents happen. Alice's blood turned to ice. She slid lower in her seat. We'll pin everything on him. The Dubai hit, the money trail, even the Mateo leak. I've planted enough trail markers to make it stick. You just need to show up. Another pause. And then, casually. You'll want to be at the Morn Voyage within the hour. Alice ended the recording with a shaking finger. She stood. Almost ran. But then. A hand clamped down on her wrist. Hard. Going somewhere. Julian. He stood behind her now, all charm and sunlit menace. His grip was light, but firm. She turned slowly, sunglasses still on. You shouldn't eavesdrop, Alice, he murmured. You shouldn't confess to federal crimes in public places. Ah, but you won't do anything with it, he said easily. Because by the time you find someone to trust, it'll be too late. He smiled. And then, just like that, he let go. Turned. Walked off like nothing had happened. She ran. Out the doors, past the pool, into the narrow alley that led to the hotel's private entrance. Her heels skidded on the tile. Her breath hitched in her throat. The harbor glinted too brightly below. She needed to find Antony. Now. The suite was empty. Still. Too still. The bed untouched. The minibar unopened. Alice grabbed her phone. Pulled up the tracking app they'd installed a few days ago, an encrypted dot that let her know when he was close by. No signal. She swore. Dialed his number. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. And again. Nothing. And then the suite door opened. Alice turned, relief flooding her, but it wasn't Antony. It was 3 men. Not in suits. In tactical gear. One held up a badge. FBI. Miss Edwards, the man said coolly. You'll need to come with us. Mr. Giordano is under investigation. Effective immediately. Alice stood frozen. But her mind raced. Too late. She looked down at her purse. The recording still active. She tapped twice, saving it. And as they reached for her wrists, she lifted her chin. Let's get one thing straight, she said. I'm not the one you should be arresting. That's the end of this part, but trust me, the next one is even more thrilling. We drop fresh episodes every day, so don't miss out. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
Because every broken heart deserves a comeback. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional romance every week. Hit like, drop a comment, and ring the bell so you never miss a moment of romance, redemption, and powerful love. And don't keep the drama to yourself, share this story with someone who lives for twists just like you. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes the best comeback is becoming unforgettable.